A relationship with the right referral partner could be a game changer for any B2B company. So what if you could reverse engineer these relationships at a moment's notice? Start a podcast, invite potential referral partners to be guests on your show, and grow your referral network faster than ever. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm James Carberry.
And I'm Jonathan Green.
Let's get into the show. All right, so the episode you're about to hear was not actually recorded for this podcast. It was recorded for another one that we're currently working to produce right now called Boston Success. So this interview is with David Cancel. He's the CEO of Drift. If you're listening to this podcast and you're in B2B marketing, you're probably well aware of Drift and of David Cancel. So just recorded this interview and thought it was way too good to not share with our B2B growth listeners as well. So I hope you enjoy this interview with David Cancel. Welcome back. We are here today with the man, the myth, and the legend himself, David Cancel, also known as DC. DC is the CEO of Drift, and they are just a rocket ship. I've been following Drift for a while now, and I am extremely excited to have David on the show today. DC, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, coming off of a hot Father's Day, amazing time with the family. And today happens to be my daughter's birthday. So shout out to my daughter.
I love it. Happy birthday, DC's daughter. So David, this show is all about your three keys to success. But before we get into that, I'd love for you to tell our listeners just a little bit about your journey that has ultimately led you to doing what you're doing today.
Sure. And so it's a long journey. So stop me if I go on too long.
Okay.
I've been doing startups now. This is my fifth company, Drift. My four companies before this, I sold. The last one I sold to a company called HubSpot when they were about 200 employees. Went there, worked for around 4 years, almost 4 years, and left at the time we were going public to start Drift. And so the reason that all of that is relevant is I didn't want to start another company to sell. Had done that already 4 times. And now with Drift, we're focused on building an enduring company, one that is this global brand and really helps other companies kind of transform the way they sell to other businesses, really the way that businesses buy from other businesses. I grew up in New York City, and both my parents immigrated to the US. And so I grew up kind of typical immigrant household. My parents worked 7 days a week most of my life. That was my normal. And so that kind of set the basis for kind of my work ethic, which I think is one of my secrets. It's not a unique secret, but it is important, and really set me on this path of this kind of entrepreneurial thinking, which wasn't a word, entrepreneurial when I was growing up, at least. Yeah. And really, set me down this course.
I love it. So you've built a phenomenal brand. You and your team have built a phenomenal brand at Drift. And so, it's interesting to hear you say what you just said about, I'm not building this to sell. I'm building it for the long term. Do you feel that kind of that mindset, DC, has been like a secret ingredient, if you will, to the brand that you guys have ended up building? Is it because of that mindset, or are there a lot of different factors a lot of other factors, I guess, that led to the brand that you guys have built in such a short amount of time?
Yeah, I think it's one of, maybe a handful, maybe less than 5, around probably like 3 or 4 other factors. But I think it's one of the most important factors. I think, when you take this approach to, which I hadn't ever before, it's funny to say, I never had, when you're starting a company, you're kind of fighting to survive. Right? Yeah. Anyone who started a business knows this, lives this every day. You're fighting to survive. You're fighting for tomorrow. And it's hard to step back and, have dreams about 10, 20 years down the line when you're just looking to survive. It's easy to have those things before you start the company or the business. It's hard to do it when you're actually in the business. And I think me taking this approach along with my founders and everyone that's joined the team, because we've been clear about kind of what we're trying to do together, has really helped us really focus on brand, which is something that takes a long time to deliver, right? It's not, your quick fix like PPC, pay-per-click ads or other kind of techniques that other people will do just to optimize for today. So yeah, it's made us comfortable with this long-term thinking. And I think it's, top 3 reasons why we've been able to build the brand, at least so far for that we have.
I love it. So before we get into your 3 keys to success, DC, I'd love for you to first kind of define for our listeners what success means to you. So could you define success from your perspective for us?
That's I love that you asked that question first, because everyone rushes into success.
Yeah.
And for me, success, is complicated. I think success is, one, being a great or being as good. I won't use the word great. Being as good a father and husband and friend that I can be, right? Yeah. And I step back from saying great, because who knows what great is. And I think in some ways now that I'm older, I kind of look back and say, I think being really good or being as good great is really just, it's about progression. It's about, can you be better than maybe your parents were able to do, right? And your parents were better probably than their parents, right? It's just like everyone's progressing, and it's only, great for right now. And I hope that my kids will be better parents than I have been. So I think, that's number 1. Number 2 is like really leaving, helping the world in my small way that I can, right? One of the things that's important for me that I didn't really talk about until recently, is that, I've been lucky, very lucky, in my life. And so like starting Drift, like it's not about getting, if we happen to be successful, which is a big if, it's not about getting another house or another car or another whatever, I'm focused on whatever upside there is at Drift to donate 100% of that away. So that motivates me, right? Yeah. I'm lucky, I can say that, right? That's easy for me to say. But it's still hard, to do, but that's really motivates me, because there are things that I want to give back towards, and we give back now, but at a different scale. Yeah. And so that motivates me. And then, the third and the last is having an impact on, and this is why I'm on this podcast and why we do the things that I do every day. I want to help 1 million entrepreneurs, 1 million people who want to be entrepreneur, I should say, become entrepreneurs, or at least discover, maybe help them on their path to become an entrepreneur. So I want to touch 1 million people. And that's why I do podcasts, or why we do our own podcast beyond our business. I really am motivated by helping to teach the few lessons that I've learned and pass them down.
So with that being said, DC, I want to transition into your 3 keys to success. So let's get started with the first one. What would you say has been, the number 1 key to your success?
I'd say number 1 has been gratitude. And I think that was kind of infused in me, but it definitely was infused into me by my parents. And so, I grew up, now I would look at it and be like, very working class would be, fancy to say that I grew up. So I grew up, with very little means, but I never felt that way my entire life. I always felt like I had everything that I needed. I never felt like I was lesser than, or had less than other people. And it was really my parents that helped me feel that way, and kind of ingrained this sense of gratitude, being grateful for everything, because I saw what they went through to give me that. And so I kind of try to practice gratitude every day, and I make it a daily practice every morning. I write a couple of things down. Of course, family is top of that list, but like I write a couple of things down every day to remind myself that why I'm grateful for having this day, for having the ability to do the things that I do, because it is extreme luxury.
Yeah. And I think what an incredible habit too, going back to your first point of like, being as good of a dad and a husband as you possibly can be. I think, having that practice of writing down what you're grateful for every day, and having your kids see that, I think that's a really, really powerful discipline, that hopefully will be passed down to your kids just by them seeing you model that.
I hope so. I hope, us talking about it helps spread it, because I think it's a thing that is becoming rare out there. And I'm sure I suffered from it myself at times and do suffer from it at times. But I think we are living in this. If you're listening to this podcast, you're amongst the luckiest people in the world, not because you're listening to us, but because you have this access to this, which most people do not, right? This is the ultimate luxury. And so you need to practice gratitude. And I think so many of us suffer from, entitlement and wanting to achieve whatever your version of success is or your version of progression is they want the secrets. And that's why we're lured to the secrets without putting in the work, right? And it doesn't come that way.
Love that. All right. So key number one being gratitude. What would you say is your second key to success, DC?
Number two is this kind of learning obsession that I have. So I call it, I take this from Charlie Munger, who's Warren Buffett's business partner. He had this quote around being a curious learning machine. It actually is one of our leadership principles here at Drift. We believe in it so much, but it's basically, the idea is very simple. It's like, going to bed every day a little bit smarter in your domain than when you woke up. That's it, right? Just a little bit, just improvement, whether your domain is sports or business or personal, just trying to be incrementally better. And as Charlie Munger says, over the long term, that makes all the difference in the world. Yeah. And so I'm obsessed with learning, getting better, progression, and then putting that into practice, which I think is number three, my third key.
Okay. So let's elaborate on that third key.
Okay. So my third key is bias for action, which is again another principle that we use internally here, but it's one that obviously has come from myself and my co-founder. So I have this bias for action. I think, it came from early in my life, like not really having lots of expectations. I really didn't have anything that I needed to live up to, in terms of, people expecting me to do things in a certain way. Right. And so I had this freedom, and that freedom led me to have contributed, I should say, to having this bias for action. And I like to learn. Learning is important, but that's like, the 20%, the 80% is actually taking action and doing something. I think that's where, that's what's really helped me, because I find that all of us freeze up, right? And overthink things and don't take action because it's easier not to take action than it is. And you may fail when you take action. You will fail most of the time. And that's uncomfortable. And so I've had this bias for action and really getting out there and doing stuff. And, I try to help people, whether they're on my team or outside my team, really lean into this third one. And not to sit on the sidelines pontificating for too long, but actually take some action, because it's in the action that you will learn.
Totally agree. So DC, to wrap up, your three keys are gratitude, being a constant learner, and having a bias for action. I resonate with all three of those in a really powerful way. I want to transition to the last part of this interview, and I call it the Fast Five. And so it's 5 rapid fire questions. I'll start you off with a softball, DC, because this show is for Boston professionals. What is your favorite place to eat in Boston?
Oh man, it's so funny. I asked this question of all new people who start at Drift at our company meeting, and then we all rate their place. I think my favorite place right now is called Lone Star, which is a fabulous Mexican place here in Boston. We don't have many, but this one's great.
I love it. All right. The second one, what is the book that you find yourself recommending the most?
Made in America, simple book by Sam Walton, the autobiography of Sam Walton, the creator of Walmart.
Yeah, I think I've heard you guys talk about that on Seeking Wisdom before. All right. What is the number one thing that you're trying to optimize for in your life right now?
Experiences.
I love it. Who is another local leader that our listeners should be following?
Paul English. He co-founded Kayak, which many of us use every day, and now the founder of Lola.
Incredible. All right. This last one, DC, what is the legacy that you want to leave?
It's simple. I just want to leave things better than they were when I got there.
Love it. David, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. If somebody wants to stay connected with you, or they want to learn more about everything that you and your team are doing at Drift, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Just DCancel everywhere. So my last name is Cancel. Easy to find everywhere. So David Cancel, you can't miss me.
Again, DC, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate your time today. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, brother.
There are lots of ways to build a community, and we've chosen to build the B2B growth community through this podcast. But because of the way podcasts work, it's really hard to engage with our listeners. And without engagement, it's tough to build a great community. So here's what we've decided to do. We're organizing small dinners across the country with our listeners and guests. No sales pitches, no agenda, just great conversations with like-minded people. We'll talk business, we'll talk family, we'll talk goals and dreams. We'll build friendships. So if you'd like to be a part of a B2B growth dinner in a city near you, go to b2bgrowthdinners.com. That's b2bgrowthdinners.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.